Are you sober and feeling real alone in COVID isolation right now? Are you sober and going like, what the actual heck is happening in the world? Why are people like this? Are you sober and like, I think I'm the only sober person ever? You're not. You're not even alone, even a little. On this podcast, we bring you all different people from all different walks and lengths of sobriety, and we talk to them about how they're staying sober and sane during this. What is even the world? I don't know. Look, thanks for joining us here on Sober During Crisis. What's going on, everybody? It's Ange Buxton. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Sober During Crisis. I'm really glad you are here. We have some actual business to attend to, like the serious kind, if possible. I made a Patreon page. It's patreon.podbean.com/soberduringcrisis. And the idea is I'll take whatever money is there and invest it back into the podcast. I'm not looking to make a profit. That would be stupid and also probably impossible. I just really want to get this podcast out on different platforms, and sometimes that takes a little bit of munai, no one has ever called it. So if you've been listening to the podcast and enjoy it, throw me $1. 50 cents, honestly, legit. I'll take it. I found 50 cents in the parking lot the other day. I invested it right back into the podcast. That's where I'm at, folks. If you don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, please do that. If you can't tell that I drank too much coffee this morning, listen to the other episodes, because I sure did. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, and I'm sober today, and I'm real grateful that I get to live this life. I get to do this podcast. I get to wake up in the morning and remember everything I did last night. Sometimes it's just playing FIFA for hours and hours and hours, and that's fine too, because I didn't drink, and I'm not going to drink today, absolutely, no matter what. Another piece of business on the Instagram. Again, go follow it. It's a great place to be. I put up a post about Deadeye Prince, that's my partner, my fiance. She was on an episode called Now More Than Ever. She has a screen printing business. She designs everything by hand and prints it right here from the basement. Like literally my studio's right next to hers. And for my 1-year sobriety anniversary celebration, she did like the coolest thing I was blown away. She made a custom design for a shirt and then printed that shirt, like literally burned the screen and printed the shirt to celebrate my 1 year sober. I was so excited about it. And it says sober but still fun. I love the shirt. It's got this circusy type font, and you can have one too, but you got to custom order. It's real easy. She doesn't have the design listed on her page, so all you got to do is slide in her DMs on Insta. Awesome site. Obviously, she has other great designs that I'm obsessed with, but this specific design obviously really speaks to me as a whole ass clown who is sober. I don't want to give up being the person I really am, and that person is kind of cuckoo nana sometimes, and that's okay with me because I'm sober, and I apologize when I'm wrong. I pay attention to what I'm doing. I do everything I can to minimize the harm. I try to be the best version of me today, basically. And our guest this week is someone who also has a sober podcast. The podcast is called Sober Gratitudes Podcast. She's the host of that podcast. Her name is Sarah. Great to have a conversation with someone from another state who lives a life quite different from mine. You know, I'm not a mom, but we still were able to relate on so much because that's what happens when you talk to another alcoholic and addict. It also feels really important for me to note that this conversation happened over 2 months ago at this point. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Sarah. Let's learn some stuff together on Sober During Crisis. Because I want this to be more like a casual conversation than anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think, yeah. I just want to know like how you're staying sober and sane right now. But also, I guess you should introduce yourself because I don't even. I'm learning.
No, I love it when it's more casual and relaxed because sometimes I listen to podcasts and it's like I cringe because you can tell they're trying to be really formal but for the most part, I mean, everyone's podcasting and everyone's pretty relaxed. As far as my experiences I've had, it's easier being a guest though for me than to host. I get a little bit more, that my perfectionism kicks in, and I have to I have to let go. I have to, just stay focused on my guest and then kind of let it go organically. But yeah, but my name is Sarah and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Sarah.
And hi. And no, thank you so much. This is such a great, I was so excited when you asked to kind of connect and do something together to get the word out there about how we're all surviving and staying sane, right? In the midst of this pandemic. I feel like that, with the program of recovery that I've been in for about 8 years now, I feel like I was like ready for this because of the program of recovery where I learned how to kind of be a relatively normal person where, I wasn't before, in my active alcoholism. And, I learned how to just be a better person, to be, to kind of get over I don't know if we can curse on this podcast.
Yeah. We're not in a church basement. We're good.
Okay. Okay.
I'm in my basement, but there's no church up there.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I would mind either.
Okay.
I cuss all the time. But yeah, like all the shit from my past, I got over, over the past 8 years, did all sorts of therapy, I was 39 when I got sober, realizing that I was like, what am I doing with my life? And so I realized when I stopped drinking that I had to do a lot more than stop drinking, that I had to really dig beneath the surface. Like, why am I drinking? Like, what's wrong? Like, what was making me want to drink? Well, I mean, there's that disease where I take one sip and I can't stop.
Right.
Like, I know that if I were to do that at this very moment, I would be off to the races. And, I'm so grateful that I have this design for living during this awful time in our world, this time of uncertainty. Cause, in recovery, I live like beginning, especially like minute to minute. It's like, oh my gosh, like what's the next minute going to hold for me, as I'm white knuckling it in the beginning, especially like,
right.
I want to drink, but I can't. I want to drink and I can't. I'm going to live. How the fuck do I live my life without drinking? But it's destroying my life. And it has destroyed my life in so many ways. And so, you learn how to just take it easy in the program and relax, it's like, right. It's really just so unbelievable. I'm just so grateful that I can now live in the house. Look, we live in this, a smaller home in an upscale town in Jersey, and my kids go to good schools, and I have 3 kids and a dog, and my dog was kind of like, what the heck are you all still doing here after
your
a
new
month,
coworker, right?
like,
yeah.
like everyone go away, like,
mm-hmm.
So, but no, it's been good. Like, we function really well together as a unit. My kids are teenagers, and my youngest has autism, so he needs a little extra help with stuff. But we've all got a routine, and in the beginning, I think it was tougher. I don't know about you, but the beginning, like, I'm like, okay, I was kind of faking the staying calm and cool. On the outside, like, I'm like, my husband and I would be like, okay, like, he already stopped going into the city. He works in New York City, and he's like, a week before, like, we got called, like, they announced, the president announced whatever, like 3:00 on a Friday or something. I can't remember. And so before we knew that was coming down, like, I got word from people who know people. Oh, the president's going to be on. And so it's going to be a lockdown, the whole world, whatever. Right. And so my husband was on a conference call, and I'm like, this is going to happen, honey. Why don't we go out to the grocery store and get toilet paper and paper towels? Like, I was just as crazy as the rest of us.
But thank God you were, right? I mean, I can't tell you. We went and ordered a bidet online and installed that within a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we were like, how can we make this more bearable?
That was smart.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny because we did act a little kooky in the beginning, and we, like, on the outside, we, like, my husband and I, we met, in the theater, so we have kind of this ability to have poker face and, like, put on a kind of a bit of an act.
But that's so cute, though. I love that.
My oldest, though, he was like, Mom, why is there toilet paper and paper towels lined up and down the hallway here? He's like, what's going on? and he's no dummy. He's 17, and
right.
he was like, what is it? What is that? You keep going out. He's like, you keep going out to grocery store. We were like just stockpiling in the beginning. And then we realized we just had to kind of chill out. And, but I think that's, everyone was like that, and then you just get to the point where it's like, you learn, like for us, we're like, we don't watch the news ever, if we just get the information we need to know, like, okay, when is school going to end? When will, how long will distance, like, because it's like a day-to-day thing,
right. It's changing so much. And I just to like harp back on some of what you were saying earlier too, I know exactly what you mean about how recovery and basically early sobriety kind of prepped me for this. Like, I do feel like that gripping for each minute, like literally each minute, just being like, nah, just don't pick up for this 1 minute. Don't pick up for this 1 hour. Okay, can you make it through the day? Okay, call somebody. Like, that's exactly the kind of feelings I had during quarantine at the very beginning. It's like, damn, I felt so alone and scared and like overwhelmed by what was going on outside. I don't know about you, but I kept having this obsessive thought of like, are they going to close the liquor stores? And this time it was because I didn't want them to keep it open because I thought that'd be way too tempting. It usually is like, the other way around. But I think it's like, it's so interesting how the internal screaming that goes on, to the point where now I'm being real open about it, and that's been helping. Just like, I'll text people, probably the text I've sent the most is, hey, I'm freaking out right now. How are you? Like I just trying to lead with that. Like, hey, I'm having a hard time today. Are you doing okay? And that's helped because I think people feel more open to being like, yo, me too. I'm freaking out. Like,
yeah, I don't even know. Like the only time I think there was just a couple times I felt this like wave of panic. It was early on. I can't say it was early on, so I can't even really remember exactly what it was. It was just kind of this wave of, oh my God, I was projecting, I think, based on what somebody was on the news was saying about like the economy or schools or homeschool. And then I was like, holy shit, what does this mean for the next year? And then I'm like, wait a minute. Well, cool the jets there, cool the jets, Sarah. I gotta just stay in the day. Like, are my kids alive? Check. Do we have, food in the house? Check. Mm-hmm. Is my husband working? Check. Like, wow. I mean, I have so much to be grateful for. Like, it, right. So grateful that we've, and are my kids going out and getting enough exercise right now? Probably not, because they're a little bit, they themselves feel a little bit panicked, and they just, they rely on, they're teenagers. So they, by default, they're in their rooms wanting to like either do their FaceTime chatting or whatever it is they do. And my kids are good kids, but they want to play. They want to have fun. They want to play their games and connect and socialize. Like, they don't want to go out for a bike ride by themselves. They want to like socialize with all the guys and the girls that they would normally socialize with if we didn't have a pandemic. So I'm like, there's things that I have to let go of and be like, this is temporary. My kids are resilient. I can't be freaking out, because if I'm freaking out, they're freaking out.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty cool, because like now that, we're all kind of here in the house together. And I'm not saying we don't ever leave the house, because we do, but we all have our kind of corners. Like, I have my podcasting corner in my bedroom, and then my husband is in this little like small office area on the ground floor by the kitchen, and he does all of his work. And then all my kids, my older two, are in their bedroom with all their like stuff, like their schoolwork and their distance learning stuff, and I can't even follow it, the Schoolology, all this stuff and they show me it. I don't even understand how they're doing it. And
it's a lot. And they keep changing it on us too. It's like they tell us a different platform every 2 days, so
my gosh.
It's
so
rough.
It's like, and then they adapt to it. Like, and my middle son, like, he'll, like, we kind of have to we don't helicopter him, but like, if he doesn't come to us and say, okay, I'm done, can you just be a second set of eyes and see that I did hand all my work in? We're like, yeah, sure. So like, we go in, and he's like, and this, and he's and I'm like, slow down, Tyler. Like, he's like, like going all over the place, like, anyway, well, the point is that like they know, like I put a little sign on my door when I'm doing an interview or I'm in a Zoom meeting with my recovery group. And I go to 3 meetings a day and I interview a lot. Like recently I've been getting like a shitload of people like
that's what's up.
Yeah, it's so great. It's like, and I'm not in it to make money. Like I didn't start it to be like, I want to be famous. You know, it wasn't that at all. It was more like, it was more like kind of just like, I want to like let people know that there's nothing shameful about, getting sober. And it's actually like, for me, it was the best thing I ever did for myself and for my family. And my kids get to see me sober. Like they're like teenagers now. So they were like babies. They were like little when I got sober. And so I got to be sober and they got to see me be sober, as they're like growing up, and they see us. My husband's not an alcoholic. He never had that, like the thing that you and I have where you take one sip and then you like have 15,000 bottles of wine later and like in an institution or jail or some other country, it's like, he has like a beer and now he doesn't even, now that I stopped drinking, he's like, what's the point of drinking? He's like, for health reasons. He's like, we're in our late 40s now. So it's like, we got to look at our health. We want to stay alive as long as we can for our kids and all that. But my kids get to see me coping with things without drinking. I love that. I never thought that would be something that I'd think about when I first got sober. Like I just thought I was cursed.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And now I think I'm so blessed. I'm like, damn, I don't have to wake up in the morning hungover. I don't have to wake up and figure out how I'm going to get liquor. I don't have to wake up and just be thinking about when's a healthy and normal time to start drinking, Like I just feel so blessed that that's just not even on my radar. Like I'm like, podcast, all right, check. Online, whatever, homework, check. Like it's just, did I do the dishes? I've been doing dishes every day. I'm on my dish game.
Nice.
Like, no dish unwashed. Like, yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your podcast? Like, I don't know very much about it. I'm not going to lie to you.
It was born out of like my desire to help people and to kind of extend my program of recovery outside the rooms. And so, I don't talk about my program of recovery. I'm not like, I stay true to the traditions of, not promoting it, but I do promote sobriety and I do promote recovery. And I do, anyone who wants to be on my podcast, who is grateful to be sober and has a program of recovery that works for them, then come on my podcast and share your story of hope so we can help other people together.
Right.
And so that's why I called it the Sober Gratitudes Podcast, because I didn't even know what that word meant until like, even like I've been sober for like 8 years now. And it wasn't until like a couple years ago that I was like, grateful. Yeah, that's a word. Like I didn't really pay much attention to that word, because I don't think I ever felt grateful for anything. And so like now it's like every day I wake up, I'm like, yes, fuck, I'm alive. Where when I was drinking, I wanted to be dead. Like I was just full of self-loathing. I hated myself. And, I don't have to go into like the details.
Oh yeah. No, one of the questions I've been asking is like, how did your personality change once you put down your drink or drug? Like what kind of shifts happened? So I'm glad you're going into this.
Before I did a lot of work on myself in sobriety and recovery, drinking was my solution to everything. Drinking alcohol I had a lot of anxiety and depression as a young person and had some trauma in my youth. And I'm not saying that's to blame. Like, I think I would just have like the planets aligned perfectly for me as a youngster to just, the first time I drank alcohol, I was 14. And like, when I started to feel that buzz, I was like,
yo, hell yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. This is the answer. This is the answer to all my problems.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I'm going to do this every day if I can. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, this is what, like a deep down, like, I don't think I was like, okay, I don't think I went like that night, went home and went, dear diary, I drank alcohol. And it's going to be my lover for the rest of my life. Like
my bestie. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Like my BFF forever. Yeah. But it was like, that everything I did in my life, like from the time I was 14 until I was 39, and I had my periods of time where I drank less. Obviously, I didn't drink at all when I was pregnant, but I didn't drink when I was nursing. But like I would be like resentful of the fact that I was still nursing. I'd be like, when can I want to drink again?
Right.
And this was I had my kids in my early 30s, but like when I was younger, like college, I was like a fucking rager, I just,
I know about that.
My whole entire 4 years, I was like in a blackout. It's just I don't even know how I graduated with the grades I did.
Isn't it crazy how we can do that? How we can something will happen and be like, yeah, I just won't drink for a couple months, basically just to prove that I can, and knowing in the back of my mind that means I'm gonna be entitled to drink as much as I want when I pick up again. It's so if I get straight A's, then it's okay that I've been raging every single day. As long as my grades are good and I'm on Dean's List, it really doesn't matter that I'm constantly drunk. I did the same type of stuff. It's so crazy how we're all so similar.
Oh my gosh, it is. We are. And Laura McKowen, I don't know if you know that author, that woman, she's around my age, a little bit younger. She just wrote a book called We Are the Luckiest. And it's true, the people, those of us that have the disease of alcoholism, that we have that allergy where we can't, where we pick up and we can't just have one is too much, 1,000 is not enough, or whatever that saying is. We just can't stop, that obsession kicks in as soon as we have that first drink. And then when we stop drinking, kind of get this design for living, at least in the, and there's a lot of programs recovery out there. There's a ton, there's a shitload.
Yeah.
The one that I use is where I kind of have to surrender all my ego and my will over to, higher power of my understanding, because the way I've been doing it, the way I was doing it my whole life was just fucking me up, I was destroying my life. And 8 years ago, my husband almost left me, and I was in the shitter. I was just a shell of a person. The progression of the disease just took hold of me. After my third son was born, it was pretty much after I was done nursing him, which wasn't that long, I picked up and I was drinking every day for hours and hours and hours. And I drove drunk with them in my car. I was hiding. It was bad.
It's so hard to think about.
But it is. But the thing is, it keeps me sober when I think about what I did.
Yeah.
And that I don't do that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that anymore. I've been relieved of that obsession to drink. But I do know that I have to maintain, in order for me to stay sober, I have to wake up and be what am I going to do for somebody else today? How am I going to be useful today? When you said, look, will you be on my podcast? Yes, it's my need. It used to be something that I felt I had to force out of me. Just do it. Say yes. You have to. You must be useful today and do this. But now it's if there's an opportunity to help just one person today who's struggling, and in the throes of addiction, or even is who, anyone, it could be anyone. It could be the sober, curious stay-at-home moms, or not stay-at-home mom, but any mom or anyone who drinks, they're oh, I only need to have I can stop at 2 drinks, but I do think about it all the time. And they're wondering, they're questioning, but they don't have to be that way anymore. You don't have to be stuck in a pattern of just living to drink and thinking about that all the time, because that's what, for me, it was I was so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and so sick and tired of constantly fucking thinking about drinking.
Yeah.
It was it was a love affair that turned rancid, and it was torrid, and it was destroying my insides, and I was becoming bloated like Jabba the Hutt, and I was and I'm a longer, leaner, innately taller person. So I've never gotten fat, but beer in college and drinking a lot of alcohol, you can't, that can put so much weight on me. No matter what diet I went on, you can't lose weight when you're drinking alcohol I was.
Hey, I found a way around that. Let me tell you, right before I went to rehab, I was taking probably 60 milligrams of Adderall a day and drinking, at least 2 6-packs of an IPA. And that was what so like, IPA bloats you right up. It's full of calories, but it's really strong. So my justification was, if I'm not really eating that much, you get really, so it was one of those things where like I just straight up wouldn't eat, and I would just take basically what is prescription meth to get around that. And I don't talk a lot about the prescription part, but it's something I have to be really like. I'm an addict too, you know what I mean? Because like once I started finding ways that drugs allowed me to drink more, I got right on drugs. I was like, cool, drugs are cool, It was just a way to drink more.
So I have a psychiatrist. Like I know how to take care of myself now, and I know how to take care of myself during this pandemic. Like I know, like I made sure, like I get in touch with my psychiatrist, my psychologist, like make sure all my doctors, like I'm staying in touch with, and I'm honest with about how I'm doing, and I'm on like a perfect amount of depression and anxiety medication. And then I have my program of recovery. So like, I just basically, if I just do like this, have this routine, this design for living every day, then my life goes, pretty nicely. And then when things go wrong, I don't flip out like a crazy lady like I used to. Like, I mean, I used to just be like, I didn't know how to cope with life, so I can't imagine like if I was still drinking right now, if I never got into recovery and I was dealing with what we're all dealing with right now. Like, I think my whole entire family, I think the house would be blown up. I think I really don't think, and like we'd all be institutionalized. It just really, it's crazy.
Yeah, like Britney Spears burned down her whole gym. I was like, man, that would be my mood. Like,
yeah, I know. And I feel sorry. Like you brought up, essential, businesses and liquor stores being essential. And when I first heard that, I was like, what the fuck? Like,
right.
You got to close it, like, but then I was like, wait a minute, like, because I have so much compassion for the people who are so addicted that they'll like have DTs, they'll seize, they'll have seizures and die if they don't get their alcohol. So and that's where I almost got to that place. Like I had to ask my doctor, like, do I need to be on seizure medication? But I didn't. I detoxed in the recovery rooms. I didn't have to go to detox, fortunately. But it was pretty close.
Oh, you missed out. They gave you some real cool slipper socks.
Yeah, I've heard. I've heard. But, it's like, it's just, I'm kind of, I ramble. Anyone who knows me knows that I like go off in tangents when we talk about recovery, because I love being recovery, and I love that I don't have to be the way I was before, because it was like a nightmare. And so my podcast really just offers the opportunity for that discussion. I give the spotlight to somebody else, like you. If you want to be my guest, you can come on podcast and the spotlight would be on you, and you can tell your whole story, and it'll shut my mouth, give you a turn. But
hey, listen, if you were rambling about literally anything else, I'd be like, this woman, I swear to God. But the enthusiasm that the people I know in recovery have really is what kind of fuels me, in the sense of like, man, I want what they have genuinely. And I got 11 months, I think, tomorrow, which is pretty dope. But it's one of those things where like I'm just now in this quarantine realizing how actually amped I am for recovery and how badly I want to talk to other people about the program I'm working. It's like I'm so excited to like spread that and get that out there, and it's because of how shitty it used to be. Like, it is hard sometimes because I don't want to think about it, and part of that is I need to work a fourth step. That's the step I'm on, and it feels like a weird time to do that one, but I got to do it because it's hard to have these meddlesome memories of shit that I did that was fucked up, and I got to just kind of come to terms with it and understand that like I'm not that person. Like, I'm not that person today. I don't have to drink. I don't have to use drugs. Like, I can just chill. I can play my PS4 and edit down some audio to the point where when I close my eyes, it's all I see. But it's a good time. I know. I'm really glad that you talk so openly about it. And obviously, I'd be happy to be a guest. Yeah, let me get a slot. Let me get a slot though.
Yeah. It's really like turned into. I've had a couple of former heroin IV crack users. Like I thought, like, that's why I'm glad I had like kind of a general, like, just sober podcast that, a lot can fall under that category, and not just alcoholism, but like drug addiction, or, even like overeater, like gambling, like anything, like, because there's, addiction comes in all forms, and addiction doesn't discriminate, and it can affect anyone. It's not just the bums on the street. It's the people who live in nice towns, and
it's the bums in the suburbs too.
Yeah. And so it's so nice that like I can have that platform for anyone who wants to share their story and talk about how life is much better for them because they chose to put the plug in the jug, and work on themselves. If you're going to put the plug in the jug and then just do that and that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
we'll see, how long that.
Yeah.
That will
let me know how many people you run off the road with your road rage though.
Yeah. Like, and I actually know somebody who doesn't do a program of recovery, but she's really active in her church. And like, so that's, I guess, working for her, and that's great. Like, that's awesome.
But the spiritual solution, like, is the solution. So that makes sense to me. Like, that's not the same thing as people I know that put down the beer, still go to work, and come home, kick the dog. You know what I'm saying? Like getting involved in a church, to me, that is very super similar to what 12-step programs have to offer. Is the whole thing is, hey, you can't stop on your own. You're going to need something greater than yourself to do it. And that's, it's called a higher power. Hop on board with this Harry Potter. HP, baby.
Yeah. And it's cool. It can be your higher power. It could be anything. Like, I interviewed this woman. Her name is Gigi Langer, and she wrote a book. She's a PhD. Amazing story. Just amazing. Like, and she wrote a book. Basically, it's amazing because people who are like anti-program of recovery, if they read this book, they'll like have a nice design to like, it's like she gives you a workbook, and like, and she's a psychologist, so she works with people who are, I think she's retired, but your higher power can be anything. It can be like the fly on the wall. It can be like your inner, authentic self. It can be, Buddha. It can be, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
you want to, you want to know what mine is? It's time. The concept of time.
Cool.
Yeah. I just think
I think
God is time. They say time heals everything. That's God. Just like only time will tell. That's God. What really heals me is time. Is doing things over time. And so to me, God is time. It's the space between everything. It goes back infinitely. It goes forward infinitely. It's way bigger than anything I can ever imagine. And the reason I'm sober is because I took the time, got sober.
That's really cool. Yeah. So what finally got you to put the plug in the jug?
It's been a journey. but I'll say this, I had a couple years in my early 20s, and I've had 8 months, 4 months, 2 months, 1 month, over and over again since 2015. I was sober 2012 to 2015. I relapsed, and it's since then, so the past 5 years have just been me trying to get this and knowing I want this, and then just like falling victim to the disease again and again. And this past time, it was just like, my stand-up comedy career was blowing up. I had a lot going for me. I was finally at a school I really wanted to be at, and I just still wasn't happy and still was just drinking. I'm with the love of my life. She was my high school sweetheart, and we got back together in 2018. It was like it was literally like true love type shit, and I still wasn't happy, and the only reason was my drinking and drug use. So it got to a point where I just was like, I've had enough. I went to my first ever actual residential. I never had gone like for 30 days. So I went up for 30 days, and it made all the difference. I'll say that. Like, for me, that's what I needed. Was I found a program that really fit my needs. It was like an all-inclusive thing where they had like activities in the day for you to try new stuff, and I just needed that. I needed to learn that I could still have fun, and I can still be a goofy goober and be myself. Like, I don't have to be, because I always thought if I'm sober, I have to be boring and always doing the right thing. Like, no, I can be a freaking hot mess if I want to, but I get to have that choice, and I'm not forced to be something I'm really not. So it was really freeing for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that, going into rehab, that's something that I think I really needed towards the end, but like, because there were my kids, I had 3 under the age of 8, and 2 of them with, significant, needs, special needs that, we couldn't afford to have like a nanny come and like take care of them while I was off at rehab and my husband was, working. So I did it. Like I live in an area, fortunately, where there's so many people who are in recovery.
That's what's up. I kind of want to circle back just for a second.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about how you had that moment of panic where you kind of realized like, oh shit, got to get toilet paper and this is real at the same time. And I know you said you kind of had to keep yourself collected and be, lead by example for your kids where it's like, yep, this is hard, but I don't want to, I can't break down and let everything fall apart type of thing. What did you do in those moments? What kind of specific tools were you using to cope? Because since you're not drinking, what are you using instead?
Nowadays, it's pretty easy for me, to be honest, because I worked so hard in my program. Like I really wanted to get better. Like I really wanted to like not be a spaz, and like by spaz meaning like get over dramatic and like have panic attack. Like I had panic attacks over little things and big things and everything. And in that moment, like, I think I just, what I do now is like, if I get that wave of panic, which isn't really that often at all, even during this time, I just kind of trust that this is all going on for a reason. Like it sounds kind of corny, but like I was talking to my cousin the other day. We do this like Marco Polo thing back and forth. This new app. It's really cool. And we were talking about like how like Mother Earth is kind of like doing what it needs to do right now to fix all the problems of what the egomaniac humans have done to the earth. And so like when I think about like, oh, like if I'm like, oh my gosh, shit, we're all going to be like stuck inside. And like, I kind of just go through this. I've learned how in my recovery program, I've learned how to kind of default to the logic as opposed to the emotional, the fear response. Like fear is usually illogical, especially like if you're like panicking, but there are legitimate fears, like things to be afraid of.
Well,
but like,
and I think, you said you had some trauma too. I know people like I had a lot of childhood trauma, and I know at the brain level, when you have trauma at a young age, your brain overfires, floods your whatever neurons with your amygdala, and it's like a whole thing where chemically you overreact more likely because of your trauma. So it's like, it's genuinely chemical, but it can be a killer.
Yeah, well, see that I had to do EMDR to get through.
Oh shit.
That because trauma, like you were right. It like you have like a like my early childhood trauma was never addressed, and then all the things that happened over the course of my life, what like any little or big trauma or bad thing that would happen would just layer on top of my untreated, unaddressed childhood trauma. And so then like my trauma became so like the trauma response was like my default to everything. So I have to say, like, I don't have a trauma response to the pandemic, not just because of the program of recovery I'm in, but also because I worked hard outside of my program of recovery and doing really thorough therapeutic type work one-on-one with a number of different types of therapists. And the one I mentioned before was EMDR. I worked with her to kind of like, it's hard to explain, but for listeners who are curious, just Google EMDR therapy. I think a lot of people know what that's about, but it basically helps with like the physiological response that we have to trauma. And that like, like I had like really bad panic attacks where my body, like I would throw up, I would the hyperventilating and the, like you get the tingling all the way down to your fingers and toes, and then they get numb and then they curl inward, and then your heart's racing and you think you're having a heart attack, and you have the cold sweats and you think you're going to die, and you're on the ground. I was like the queen of panic attacks. And so that was like primal instinct, to protect myself based on just all the years that I held on to this trauma. Like my body was just in that trauma state all the time, no matter what was going on,
Yeah.
And I would drink over it. I would drink to kind of deal with like things that were traumatic. And when I say traumatic, like for me, like it could be just a little teeny thing. And I would respond to it like disproportionately. Like I would just,
then that's what happens, right? When you have like actual trauma, your brain is not sure what's an actual threat, and so fight or flight response is triggered much quicker because you're like, is this gonna be like last time when a bee landed on me, like and it sounds like you're suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically that your program of recovery needs to also include things outside of a 12-step program, so you need to pull in all sorts of different resources to really get what works for you. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I like what you said. And I think some people do need that. Like there's some people who don't, who there's something like, I have a friend who had like this like lovely upbringing, no alcoholism in their family, nothing going. And then he just happened to be an alcoholic, and he still struggles to this day. And he didn't have any kind of trauma in his life. He has no like depression, anxiety, like nothing. So there's some people who just need a program of recovery, and then there's people like me who have like all this other shit that, that went on in my life and that I had to address. So yeah, like and that's why like, I'm always like, listen, like what works for one person doesn't work for another. So we can't judge people, like however they get sober, and if it's working for them, do it. Like, and if they're doing a program recovery and it's still not working, then, maybe it's time to dig a little deeper and be like, wait a minute, do I need to see a therapist, or I need to see an addiction therapist? Like, do I have a sex addiction? Do I have like gambling? Is there something other program that I need to go in? Do I need to talk to a therapist specifically about like this ongoing depression that I have, or the fact that I never sleep at night, like what's going on? Like there's reasons, like if we're not sleeping at night, there's a reason why that's happening. So to have somebody you can speak to outside of the who has like a PhD or LSCW after their name, like anyone who's trained and knows about addiction, and is really well versed in that area. And like, I just think, for me, like I had to basically go out and tell all of the specialists that I got in contact with, like every doctor I knew, I had to be honest with. And I had to say, this is what's going on with me. Where do I go? Who do I ask? Like, because I was that desperate, and that is a gift, to be that desperate to get better. It means you're willing. Like I am one of the luckiest, as Laura McKowen would say, is like, I'm one of the luckiest because I was like in a place in my life where I'm like, I think there's a reason I'm supposed to be here on this. I didn't used to think that I was meant to be alive and on this earth. Like that's crazy to think that I lived most of my life being like, why am I alive? Why do I exist on this earth? And now, thinking about suicide big time, trying it and really sucking at trying, attempting. And, like,
sorry for laughing, but like, it is a really funny thing to fail at doing. And I know it's not funny. I know it's not, but there's a comedian part of me that just thinks it's so funny. It's like, I wanted to die, but I didn't want to die. And it was like so fucked up, and so, but now, like, I don't have any of those feelings anymore because I was so desperate and I was so willing to just do whatever the fuck other people told me to do because whatever I was doing wasn't working. Right.
And so now, like, everything that I'm honest with, like, my dentist. I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm in recovery. Like, I'm honest with everyone. I tell, like, my kids have, like, they have clinical anxiety because it runs in our family. We have a lot of that in our family. So you know what? I have no shame. And two of my kids have autism. Okay, so they have some issues with attention. I did too, but it was untreated. Like nobody knew that because girls back in the 70s and 80s didn't, they just kind of like withdrew into the, like for me, like I just kept quiet and I was like, what the fuck is going on? I can't keep up with this. Yeah. Like and I'd have panic attacks and I thought it was just, and then I would drink and then everything would, be better for me in that moment. But then, so now like I tell my kid psychiatrist that I'm in recovery. so they can treat my kids better knowing their history.
Yeah.
You know, like honesty is like the best possible medicine. Like if you really want to get better, if you want to live like the best life that you can, like just getting honest, like letting go of your ego. I used to be like, oh, if I get sober, like everyone's going to be talking about me behind my back. And, oh, poor me, poor me. Yep. And it's like, you know what? Like no one really gives a fucking shit, you know, like, and if they do, they're talking about me behind my back. I don't care.
You know, like, most people talking behind my back were like, damn, Ange looks way better now and is actually way funnier on stage. You know what I mean? They're like, what happened to you? You got buff and tan. They're like, it looks like you ate some food for once, you know? It was that's what they were saying.
Good. Yeah. Self-care. I love it. The self-care is a good thing. Yeah. And self-care means like if you start to feel like a wave of panic coming on when you hear something on the news about COVID, if you start to get panicked, turn that fucking shit off.
Oh, yeah, yep. Hit that, yeah.
You know?
Sometimes I gotta mute words on Twitter all the time now. I gotta mute words because I can't, you know, I have certain accounts that I keep it open so I can check it. And then I have some accounts where I'm like, you know, I need to just decompress right now. I need to read about football or something, you know, well, even that right now is a little tainted because it might not happen. But, you know, like I just need something that isn't COVID related, and I definitely hear you. And what I just heard is some great advice for newcomers, which is like, dead ass, just be honest with all your professionals. Like, tell everybody. Just tell. And if they don't like it, fuck them, because you have to be, and you'll be so surprised by people's reactions. Like, it's crazy how people react to it, because it's like, oh, my cousin is, and my aunt is, and oh, I have many patients who are, and you're like, wait, you're telling me I'm not alone? Is that what you're saying? Like,
no, you're so right. And you know what? I may sound like a total snob by saying this, but I'm like all my doctor's favorite patient because I'm so wickedly honest. And like, so I'll go and I'll remind them, I'm like, well, no, because I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, yes, we know. But it's such a relief for me, because I'm like, like if I go into like a specialist for something, because I have like a chronic illness, and I thought I had sleep apnea. And so it's related to this other chronic illness that I have. And so I was like so excited for the part where they say, how much do you drink? And I'm like, 0 and nothing.
That's my favorite part now. Yeah.
And it's like where it sucked, where like so much anxiety when I like go to the doctor, like, and how much do you drink? Like, 3 to 5 a week. Meanwhile, it was like 3 to 5 an hour,
right, a day,
3 to 5 every half hour, like I lied all the time. And it's such a relief. And, the doctors now they really respect me. And I have doctors ask me, well, what do you do? Because I have this other patient that's really struggling. And I'm like, awesome, give me my number. Like, I'll talk to them, but I'll talk to them. Like, I'll tell them like what to do. Like, I'll suggest things to them. Like, they'll do whatever the fuck they want, but I'll, like, if they want some help, I'll suggest things to them. And, if it works for them, great. But like, that's the thing. Like, when you're honest, like, people are like, wow, like, that's pretty cool. Like
the big book
cool
talks,
that you say that.
Like the big book talks a lot about that, and just opening up to priests and physicians, or whatever other archaic terms, your local alchemist or whatever they had in the 1930s. They're just like, if you just open up to your local apothecarian and let them know that you're in recovery, and you'll have a you'll have a ring on your landline that's of someone needing your assistance. But it's like dead ass really what happens. Like, I went to my principal. I haven't told anyone this on the podcast yet, but I went to the principal at the school I work at, and I said, listen, if I can't get clean this summer, I can't come back and teach, because I'm just not going to, it's not going to happen. And you know what he did? He called up an alcoholic who was on the staff, someone in recovery on the staff. This person came down and got me into a treatment center that night. They drove me 50 minutes to a treatment center that night, and it was all because I took that leap of faith, and I went and I said, listen, like, if I don't get help, I can't do this. And he was like, no, like, we want you here. And he got somebody down there that could be like, okay, like, what do you need? Because we're getting you in tonight. You're not leaving this office. He's like, I'll go get you a beer to help your withdrawals if that's really what it takes, but you're going in a center tonight. And that kind of a gift is just like, what? Like, somebody was just so willing to take their whole day and do this. It's crazy.
That's so fucking awesome. I love that. And that's the thing, like people don't realize, like, and that's why I'm like I've been coming out of the closet more about being in recovery. And it took me some time because I really needed to like just have it be my thing. Like it needed to be my thing, and I need to work out my shit by myself. And I didn't want to have to worry about explaining shit to people, like, cause it was like, why, like, I don't want to burden people with what I'm trying to work out with my own business, until I get my shit together. And like, when I tell my sponsor, I'm like, when am I going to when should I do this? And she'd always say, you'll know. And I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like, just tell me when to do it. She'd be like, just time takes time. Take your time, just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Keep working on yourself. And, so now I'm just like, God, this is great. Like during this pandemic, I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to I'm coming out on Facebook now. Like I was keeping that kind of under wrap, like Facebook. I'm like, oh, I'll just have it, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to fucking lie about this anymore, because not that I was lying, but
it feels like it though, right? It's like a secret. Like it feels sick.
And a secret denotes like that you're ashamed, because, you're like the saying, you're sick as your secrets and stuff, but it doesn't apply to being in recovery, because it's like, the bottom line is like, I don't talk about my program recovery and promote it, because then if I relapse, then it means that my program doesn't work, so that's essentially why that tradition is in there, is so but I can promote sobriety.
Yeah, and I would say recovery. That like my program is the reason I've had any clean time ever. And I'm not scared to tell somebody that, like, the only reason I have the time I have today is because of the meetings I go to, because when I stop going, I relapse like that. Like, and it's happened. I can't even count how many. I never really sat down and counted how many times, but every time the only thing in common was I got away. I didn't feel connected to a group. I didn't feel connected to, the meeting and have like people I could call. So I was like, fuck it. If I'm doing this on my own, I might as well drink. And so to me, I do tell people that, like, this is what worked for me. It's still working for me. It don't have to work for you, but it's working for me right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like I said that too. Like people ask me if they're like, what do you do? Like, yeah, I'll tell them. And I put my podcast episodes on my Facebook page, and I tell them, I'm like, this is an incredible story. Like it's like, I want to spread hope. I want to celebrate the hope in recovery, because people I want to change the stigma. Like I want to be a part of that, like the revolution, like, and there's a shitload of us who are coming out of the closet, who, in terms of like how there's no shame in not drinking, and it's so interesting. Like, it's so easy for people to talk about like how they got shit faced. And I was like this, like, I was like, yeah, like I did keg stands and I did it for like 5 minutes straight without barfing, like, and now I'm like that, like I joke about it because, I'm like, I got to joke about it because I really, love to drink that much. And, I'm kind of like, I feel kind of embarrassed, but I got to make a joke out of it because, I don't want people to catch on to the fact that like, that's all I do is think about fucking drinking there. And I used to be like, I remember I relapsed early on, just for a day. And I tried to quit on my own. And then this gal, a friend of mine in town, she goes to church, and that's her program, and that's awesome. And she said she was so helpful to me. And then 4 months later, this is before I, got to where I am now in my program. I said, oh yeah, I'm better. I can start drinking again, because I was feeling better. I was on that pink cloud.
Oh yeah, shit happens to me a lot.
I'm like, I can control it. I'll just have like one, whatever. I had a whole plan, and this is like my umpteenth time I've like try to quit or slow down or whatever.
Control it,
I'm like,
right?
I'm like 4 months. Yes. Like I definitely, like I got the recharge time that I needed, and now I could just start back up. But then I'd see her at like, out at restaurants or out, and I'd be like drinking, and I'd be so ashamed. Yep. Because like I had reached out to her before, and she knew that I wasn't drinking. But you know what? She didn't even give a shit. She's like, like she was, if anything, she was thinking, oh, I hope Sarah's okay. I know she's, I know it's tough to get sober. Cause that's what I do. Like, you know, like think about people, like I know if they're trying to get sober and they're struggling, I'm like, I know it's so fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard as hell. And like, I have so much admiration for people who are trying to get sober. And, you know, I don't judge them if they relapse because it's hard. It is.
Right.
Like, it's so fucking hard. I mean, and, so that's the thing now. Like, I have no shame at all that I am in recovery and that I'm a sober mom and that I'm present for my kids and that I have my oldest son. He's like, he's not like as extroverted as I am in terms of like talking a lot and stuff. Like I told him like a year and a half earlier that I was in program and he didn't have much to say about it. I don't, you know, like what 15-year-old son, like who doesn't really express himself that much with his mom, like what is he going to say? You know, like
right.
It's kind of weird, you know? And so, but I was honest with him and then like now he's like decided for himself based on what he knows about his genetics and he's probably seen shit go down and and like I didn't tell him to not drink. I didn't tell him that.
Right.
I told
just
him that
like
I was
everything speaks, right? Just leading by example.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like I mean for 6 years I just told them I was going to church meetings, you know, because like they're too young to know right now, you know, like when I feel like it's ready, they're ready, I'll tell them. I know that, you know, the odds are 50-50, you know, with all three of my kids, you know, but I'm not like freaking out, like talking about it, thinking, oh my God, they might become an alcoholic or an addict of some sort. But you know what? I'm so fucking psyched that I'm sober because if they ever have problems, they already know that they can come to me because I told them.
Yeah. And they already know that there's a solution and that there's hope, like there's hope for them. You know, they don't have to just be resigned to using just because they're an addict. They don't have to be resigned to drinking just because they're an alcoholic. Like there's actually a whole lot of people that I wish I could drink all day sometimes, but not anymore, you know? Like I don't want to do that anymore. My life's too good.
I know. And it is. It's like the being sober, like there's so much more time in the day now and like I'm like, I have interests now that are like, I used to think there was nothing interesting in life aside from like finding where I could drink and who I could drink with, you know, but now there's so, like, and I'm not going to, you know, I've taken up a lot of airspace on your episode right now, but you know, like in terms of like interest, I'd like, now I think I'm 47. Fuck man. Like sometimes I'm like, fuck, I should have died. I wish I had got it sober earlier,
right?
You know, cause like, there's so much I want to do now, you know, and so much that like I can do and be honest about and it's all authentic, you know, because like I've got this monkey off my back. I've come clean. I got through, you know, I got over all the traumas of my past. I don't carry around this anger baggage. Like I used to be such an angry person.
Yeah. Actually, you know? One of the questions I have that pertains to just like a new lease on life is, are there any weird or like specifically surprising hobbies that you've gotten into since getting sober? Anything that's like caught you off guard about yourself?
The podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, perfect answer. Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I'd be so afraid to do something like that before and put myself out there because with anything, you know, like if it was a podcast on plants, you know, like, or whatever, like I'd be nervous to do it, you know, because I would want it to be perfect. And then I'd be like, oh, it fucking sucks. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. Oh, poor me, you know, like, right, and that's I'm talking about myself. Like, that's what I was like. But now I'm like, oh, you know, I really think I might be, this might be a strength of mine. This is my creative outlet. You know, like I'm a conversationalist, obviously, you know, like my kids tell me, they're like, Mom, you talk all day long. Like you just don't stop talking, Mom. And, but no, I do have a lot of quiet time too. But, you know, like talking about like real cool shit like this, you know, real meaningful stuff, like just self-evolution now and like really evolving as a person. And like, I love Deepak Chopra and I love Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle and Marianne Williamson. And like, they're like my gurus. They're like my heroes. I'm just talking about like women's purpose on, you know, and like like our strength as women, like what, like I just like I get into all that shit. Like I just like, but then for boys, I have sons, so I'm like, I kind of feel like I have this like this real desire to like really understand how young men operate and boys operate. Like, and fortunately my husband is like fucking awesome. Like he's such an awesome dad, and he like doesn't, he lets them hug him. Like he's appropriately affectionate with them if they hug him. And so I am like so lucky, that he didn't leave me. Like I gave him so many reasons to dump me, to divorce me. But he's a forgiving guy, and he also he knows himself. Like none of us are perfect. Like he was born wired, like already knowing the program of recovery that I'm in, that like I had to go and learn about and like get the manual. Like he had the manual basically at birth. Like I don't know how that was possible, but like so like it's just pretty cool that like that he was like, well, that takes two to make a relationship. So he said, let's work on our relationship. Like let's work on this. And now like I feel I could be a poster child for like sobriety, alcoholism and sobriety and getting sober. Like I would love to have a voice that could speak to the masses like Brene Brown can and Glennon Doyle, because they're doing a great job. Not that like my ego is getting in the way right now, but like I love to be a part. Like that's why I'm like, this podcast is giving me the opportunity to kind of do something where I can reach more people and spread, kind of the good news.
Yeah.
The good news is like, you don't have to drink to be happy.
Yeah. That kind of makes me, so I was just thinking about when you said, that one of the reasons for anonymity is if the program didn't work, you wouldn't want people to blame the program. But I can't stop thinking, like, if my psychiatrist prescribes me something and I don't take it, is it the psychiatrist's fault? You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Like, if I go to a program and they tell me that there are these, usually it's like 3 very simple things that you shouldn't do if you want to live happy, sober, and free, and I don't do those 3 things, is it the program's fault? You know what I mean? So just thinking about that, I'm like, I'm not sure that I could even, thinking back, blame the program. The only thing that I do struggle with in a 12-step program is the gender stuff, because, I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in gender as a binary. I think that making hard, fast rules for how people who are quote unquote women and quote unquote, like saying like, oh, you girls are like this and boys are like this, for me just never applied. I was always like an outlier in those situations. And I exist. What I say is like smack in the middle. Like, so, cool. I was born female and I just never understood gender. It just didn't like make sense to me. So for me to be in a program that's telling me like men have to sponsor men and women have to sponsor women, it just doesn't, it really didn't vibe with me. And it was an issue I would have, where I would try to go talk to a dude that shared something and be like, hey, like, I really liked what you had to say. And to have him say, hey, have you met my friend Amy? And it's like, dude, if I wanted to talk to Amy, I would go talk to Amy. Just because, like, so I think it is like for some people, it's almost like a self-preservation where they just they think that it's going to be the wrong thing based on these very old ideologies. But I think, emotional expression, gender expression, like these things are really tied into our cultural norms and marketing and capitalism. And like, for me, like, I never really understood like, oh, women are supposed to act like this and men are supposed to act like this. It's like, I don't know if it's I can't say it's the way I was raised, because I was raised in the Catholic Church. So it's, I don't know what it is.
I get it. Yeah. No, I love what you're saying. And I'm like, I would love to talk to you for like 5 more hours about that exact issue of gender issues. And because that's something like, I'm like, that's another thing in sobriety. Like, I'm so much more curious about things and I want to learn more. And I'm like, I'm so liberal and open-minded. So I'm like, I'm very open to like, when I don't understand something, I'm like, tell me more, say more, explain it to me, teach me. Yeah. Help me know. Like, I want to understand. And that makes total sense. You know what you said about the men, men sponsor men, women sponsor women. And it's probably just so people, back in the day, so like people wouldn't go like just men and women wouldn't go exactly. Like fuck each other, you know, like
because you don't want any preying. Like people really are predators sometimes. I see it all the time with everybody. Like it's not just one or the other.
Oh, totally, totally, yeah, I know. It's like and you know, the book was written a long time ago, before any of this stuff that we're discussing now has become more of an open discussion and conversation that we're having culturally in the world. But yeah, see, that's what, like, some people I know, like that, I know some women who are like, I'm not going to be in this program because it's always talking about he and him and it's all, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Right. No, me too. I'm like, if you can't see past that, then you're not, because when I start obsessing over stuff like that, it's always right before I go back out, because I start trying to look for loopholes. I'm like, how can I just say this isn't for me? What am I gonna, you know, it's for you, dude. Like the message is pretty clear. Like, the language is old, but come on.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. That's I sometimes I'll even be like he, she, like if I'm reading something, I'll hear other people do the same thing, both men and women. Like I know
both, a lot of they and people and
totally they exactly, or they'll just leave, or like replace, like, even the God is always him, like you know,
right.
By default, I just say him, but for the most part, I just say God, you know, like God, said God,
like higher power. I hear that too. Yeah, like higher power, grant us this serenity, and you know, some of that to me is like we're being a little nitpicky, but I get the sentiment as someone that's felt like an outsider for things that are out of my control. You know, like I know I'm an alcoholic, I know I'm an addict, but there's certain ways that some people won't really sit down and think like, is it my place to tell somebody else what's right for their sobriety? You know, like I've just seen it happen to the point where it did used to frustrate me. Now I'm like, it's my program. Nobody's going to tell me how to work my program.
Yeah, I know. And it's like you can't, even when somebody says, oh, can you help me? Can you tell me what to do? And you suggest it. And then they're like, nah, I don't want to do that. Yeah, well, there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
You know, like,
it's like when a doctor says take this for your anxiety, and you're like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, you're still gonna have anxiety, bro. Like,
yeah, totally, yeah, exactly. So, but no, it's like I really I'm thinking, you know, I know you're gonna get listeners who are like getting through this pandemic sober. It's like there's shitloads of Zoom meetings.
Yep.
So get on them. You know, if you want to look at other people who understand what you're going through, you know, and I you know, would be happy to give you numbers that people can jump on if people like reach out to you and they're like, oh, we don't know where to go.
Well, I got you. And you know what? They're online. And also for anyone listening, I haven't said this yet. I have a list of queer meetings for my people that are like, need to be in an LGBTQ safe space. Like I personally have made a list, and if I as long as I know that you're not a Zoom bomber, I'm willing to disclose some of that info, you know, because some people got to find what's right for them, and if that's what they need, I got you.
And those meetings are out there. That's awesome. Yep. Yeah. Like, I mean, I tell you, like when we started, like when this pandemic went down, everyone's quarantined, like my people, you know, in the groups I'm into, the two groups that I go to regularly, they were on it. They were like in nanoseconds. They had the Zoom meetings up, and and I kept saying, I'm like, we're gonna like break the fucking internet here. You know, like we know how to do this. We know how to like work into the solution. Okay, we don't have any place to go to meet. Okay, what are we gonna do? Yep. This is what we're gonna do. And everyone, and in these meetings, they pop up. Like now, I'm like, I think I'm gonna go to Australia today for a meeting. Yeah. You know, like, and like I hit a California meeting a couple times a week. It's really awesome, and they always say rad, and they're really
so rad, dude. Totally
it's so funny.
tubular.
I'm like, are you guys just like joking saying that?
Yeah, it's so, like, dude. I love like sobriety. It's so rad.
But they're like the same, you know. They're just like, we're all the same, you know. We're different, but our feelings are the same, you know. If people are like struggling, you know, you don't have to feel that way anymore. There's a way, there's a solution, you know, there's really a solution. And it's, if you want it that bad, I always said, you know, I'm like, you know, I worked my ass off at getting to all the liquor stores at times when I knew not a lot of people would be in the store, when I would liquor store hop, like, so I had like 8 different liquor stores I'd go to. So people at the liquor stores didn't think I had a problem, and I project managed my active alcoholism really, really well. So I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to be in recovery now, I kind of owe it to myself to work just as hard in recovery as I did in my active alcoholism, and because I did that, because I worked just as hard, or if not harder, that's why I'm here today. And I only have today, that's all I have. I love what you're doing. I love
thank you
podcast.
So much for being on this. Like first of all, I got a lot out of this conversation. I really appreciate. I know you said you're a talker and everything, but honestly, I get the gift of being able to sit and listen today, which to be honest, I never had that before. So it's to me just cool to actually hear somebody working a program, also running a podcast, and sharing similar sentiments with you just on how much better life is. It makes me feel a lot less alone today.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, you know how to find me. We're Twitter pals.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And you have my phone number, so call me anytime.
Okay.
I really enjoyed talking to you. I'd love to hear more about you.
Yeah, let me hit you. I'll hit you back on Twitter, and we'll get something scheduled for what works for you. That'd be great if we could do a little guest spot swap. See, I don't think there's an official term for that yet, but I'm making it happen. It's now officially called guest spot swap, and anyone who says differently is a liar.
Yeah, and you better brand it ASAP.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, let me call my people. My people will call your people LLC. Hey, Sarah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I'll let you know when the podcast comes out.
It's cool. Well, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna listen to your other episodes. How many do you have out so far?
I think today I dropped my 7th full length, so
nice.
It's it'll be number 8, I think, on if you do Apple Podcasts. But I'm really proud of myself. I'm not gonna lie. This is finally all my time sitting making hip hop music in the studio is paying off, and I don't even have to be drunk to do it, which is great.
Stick with it, because this is a good venue for you.
Oh, thank you so. I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks again to Sarah for being on the show. You can follow Sober Gratitudes podcast on Twitter, on Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcast. And if you want to be on the show, we need you. I don't have as many interviews lined up this week, so my schedule is pretty open, which means you can hop in a slot anytime. Just hit me up, soberduringcrisis@gmail.com. I'm serious, y'all. Do it. You won't. I appreciate you sticking out to the end and being here. Just don't pick up today, no matter what. Peace.